What's up, Hokie Nation, and welcome into this edition of Talking with Teel, presented by State Farm. James Franklin is the next head football coach at Virginia Tech. We're going to get Mr. Teel's reaction, and guess what? We're going to break down the press conference that just took place inside Cassell Coliseum. All that and much more coming up on this edition of Talking with Teel, which starts right now. And we record on Wednesday, November 19th, 2025 from the Tech Solutions studio in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Remember to like, subscribe, and refer the show to a friend. I'm your host, Carter Hill. To my left is our, of course, honorary guest, the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer, David Teel. Across the way is our managing editor, David Cunningham. To his right is our senior staff writer, Andy Bitter. And Nick Brown, our director of media, is producing behind the scenes.
How are you today, Carter?
I'm good. How are you? I am amped up.
Respond.
I'm on a different...
Okay, that's
different,
good. Respond.
Yes,
You're supposed to
yes,
respond.
yes. How are
All
you guys?
of those introductions are just, you just got to blow through it. You know,
Yes.
you don't want to waste time with these things.
No, of course not. Of course
James
not.
Franklin wants a response to how you're doing today.
He does.
I'm doing well today. Thank you very much.
Doing well. Welcome to
And then
Blacksburg.
all those responses added 2 or 3 minutes to questions that we then couldn't ask at the press conference.
I'm just
Yes.
glad he remembered me.
That's right. Yeah.
And he even said,
Method to your
Good-
madness. All
good-
those people are like, oh, Teel's such a nerd trying to introduce himself or get an answer out of James Franklin. Like, that wasn't the point. He wasn't going to say anything.
you saw him
The
less
point
than a
was
week
getting
ago.
some FaceTime with the man.
No, two Thursdays ago.
Yes, 2 weeks ago.
Two
at Old
Thursdays
Dominion.
ago at Old Dominion.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
He remembered, and he was. And as I told him in the press conference today, he was so gracious. Because I'm just doing my job. He goes, no, I get it. I can't tell you anything, but I get it. And then he made quite clear he was not interested in further conversation. And I went on my way.
Well, that's
All
part
good.
of it. That's part of it. I remember when you tweeted that out, I was like, this is insane. David Teel is literally on site at Old Dominion with James Franklin in attendance. Had to mean that he was recruiting Ricky Ronnie and Colton Joseph to Virginia Tech, by the way. Had to mean that. Had to mean that.
You might not be wrong.
I wouldn't say no necessarily. I don't. We'll see. We'll see what they
get to
do with
that.
this staff. But man, wouldn't put it out the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
We need to chat.
We need to chat. This may be a longer one today, but it's so good to have you in person because I love having you obviously able to zoom in, but when you're in person, it's so much more of a personal conversation.
Yes. No.
So let's start with James Franklin. So he is the next head football coach at Virginia Tech. Before we get to the press conference and before we get to kind of a bunch of other stuff taking place, what was your overall reaction when you found out Monday evening or maybe even earlier that he was going to be the Hokies' next head football coach?
Number one, I had to cancel my 5:30 interview with a source on a different story. But number two, was not surprised because we've been talking about this for weeks on end. But the more I thought about it, the more it just kept dawning on me. Number one, this guy he is going to the College Football Hall of Fame whenever his career ends. The criteria for a coach is a .595 career winning percentage over at least 10 years. He's pushing up against .690 career winning percentage. At Penn State, it was almost 700 over 11 plus seasons. And that his tenure at Penn State actually coincides perfectly with the college football playoff era. So there have been 11 college football playoffs, only one with 12 teams. But if all 11 had 12 teams, the Nittany Lions would have been in it 7 times.
What strikes me about this is just sort of the incredible timing of this whole thing. And, I was talking with Bill Roth before the press conference today. He's like, if Brent Pry gets fired after the Duke's Mayo Bowl, you're not getting James Franklin. He's coaching the college football playoff. He got to the semifinals last year. If Brent Pry gets fired today, I don't know that you get James Franklin if you don't have that head start and be able to just focus in on him. So, I mean, the fact that Pry was fired when he was fired, Franklin was fired when he was fired, Pry was, honest enough with Franklin about what this opportunity was like. Honestly, could have buried Virginia Tech if he wanted to.
I thought he came across almost heroic
I know.
today. Brent
Yeah,
Pry.
100%.
No, I'm
100%.
serious.
But for him to yes, this is a place that you can succeed and you want to succeed. They have all this stuff. And then for the committee to go so hard after him. And, we'll talk about this later, but Ryan McCarthy, one of the board members, said he's our first choice and our only choice. They zeroed in very quickly and pivoted once this guy became available. I mean, the stars sort of all aligned for this to happen here. And I mean, we'll see how the rest of the coaching carousel plays out, but Is there another school that's going to make a better fit or a better hire than Virginia Tech with James Franklin? I have a tough time believing that.
On paper? No.
Yeah. Oh, and this is a coach that they were preseason number 2, the Nittany Lions, and started 3-0. At the same time Brent Pry was fired, they were 3-0 and number 2
in the country and preparing for Oregon.
And as he brought up today, they were a drive away from playing in the national championship game last year, and now he's coaching at Virginia Tech. Yeah. And that's just the craziest thing of it all. You talked about his Hall of Fame resume. I mean, he will be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done.
Right there next to Frank.
And Virginia Tech now has its second Hall of Fame head coach. And Bud made a joke earlier when we were talking to him, Bud Foster, about, I would love for him to be here a decade, 15 years, have great success, and us build a statue on the other side of Beamer Way across from Frank by the time he retires. And
there's 2 sides of that little bench on the statue.
Yeah, exactly. That's what Bob was talking about.
I mean, this is Virginia Tech knocked it out of the park. As simple as that.
To me, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I said this to Andy when we were wrapping up in the press box this afternoon, and I rarely say this about a coaching hire. I'll be surprised, really surprised, if this doesn't work. It very well might not, but I'll be very surprised if it doesn't.
Yeah, with the level of resources that they're pouring into this thing, a coach that has proven what he can do with those kind of resources. Listen, I think if they would have hired Bob Chesney, it would have been a good hire. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't have been sure of it. I'm like, this guy's a good coach. I think it's going to work out here. But there's a lot of questions about somebody going from a group of 5 up to a power conference school like that. You saw it with Fuente previously. There's obviously questions with Pry coming up to this level from a coordinator to a head coaching spot. This is a guy who is a proven head coach who now sort of has the full weight of resources from Virginia Tech at his disposal. He's a motivated head coach. I think he's going to coach with a chip on his shoulder.
Yep.
Get him on the recruiting trail right now. I think he's going to be out there with a purpose going after some of these guys. I think, again, it's just a perfect alignment of stars for this hire. I'm usually pretty, not pessimistic, but I take a cautious eye on this stuff. But even I'm looking at this one going, man, it's tough to see too many drawbacks in this thing.
No, I completely agree. And you guys know the program better than I, because you're here, boots on the ground and such. I've been around longer, but you know the ins and outs of the program, especially recent history. And when Justin Fuente replaced Frank, we all thought he could restore the program. He'd done yeoman's work at Memphis. He'd been a very effective coordinator at TCU. He had this reputation for quarterbacks. Okay, so you think he can do it. And then that doesn't work. And then Brent Pry comes along, and you hope he can do it. Never been a head coach, but he knew the culture, appreciated the culture, having grown up the road in Lexington and then been a GA here. With James Franklin, you know he can do it. Knowing is a hell of a lot different than thinking or hoping.
I mean, we already talked on his resume. I thought there were so many good quotes that came out of today. Not a lot of them from Franklin, honestly. I thought Franklin's quotes were fine, but when we got to talk to Bud Foster and Ryan McCarthy and Jay Pearson,
Bud misses us, man.
Bud was the highlight today, man. Gosh. He was on a roll.
Well, so I want to read this quote from McCarthy about just who James Franklin is, and I think you saw it. He won the press conference very easily. But he is such a CEO type of guy, and he has such a charismatic personality, I think, and he really gets recruiting, and he's been recruiting so well for so long. And this is what Ryan McCarthy said about him. Former U.S. Secretary of the Army, I might add, who is a BOV member and on the search committee. He said, quote, "I think he could run a business. He could run an infantry battalion. He's a remarkably talented executive and gifted communicator beyond just as a football coach."
That was my favorite quote of the day, Dave. I'm so glad you transcribed that and sent it over to me when we were up in the box. That was awesome.
He's somebody who, I feel like just such a unique personality, but he fits with so many different types of people.
So I wanted to go there. You guys obviously talked to a lot of members of the BOV today, or at least Jay Pearson and Ryan McCarthy. obviously Bud Foster as well, who seemed to be very, very, very involved. Whit Babcock spoke with the media too, who also was very, very, very involved. What kind of peek did you get behind the curtain today in terms of not only the last couple of weeks, but like the last couple of days? There was a whole like Friday night, there's the flight that's going up to State College with Bud. Was it Jay Pearson?
We got all the
It
details.
wasn't a peek behind the curtain. It was an
not.
IMAX movie
Oh,
today.
okay,
That's what they
okay,
were
okay.
showing us.
But thanks to Bud and Ryan McCarthy.
And they tag teamed the interview, telling us about everything.
They willingly shared everything. I mean, even from
So take us from Friday to
well,
today,
even talking
essentially.
about how Bud called up Franklin about 2 days, the Monday or Tuesday after Franklin was fired on Sunday, and gave his condolences and said, hey, I'm really sorry to hear, but
Because they go back. They have a relationship.
correct. They coached against each other back in 2008 when Franklin was Ralph Friedgen's offensive coordinator at Maryland. And Bud said, we got an opening. Like, I'm sorry, but we're looking for a coach.
Like, here's my business card.
But Bud had an agenda. He said
and
as
Franklin
much.
was interested.
And I think, that's important to Frank, because a lot of people come up to him at that point and they're ADs or agents or something like that. I think Bud's role in this was so valuable because he was a football coach. And he could talk to him as a coach to coach and figure that out. I mean, Bud throughout this whole process, first of all, it sounds like they really narrowed down that committee to an important trio or quartet of people. They're like, all right, we're going to take over this thing at this point.
Because maybe there were some
some loose
violations
lips
of that
early.
NDA.
Bud made that original contact. He's like, all right, listen, it sounds like this could be a possibility. Like 7 to 10 days after Franklin had been fired by Penn State, they took like a whole contingent going down to
5 of them.
Reynolds Plantation is where
Lake Oconee.
Yeah.
Georgia.
The
Georgia?
date line is Greensboro, Georgia.
Okay.
It's east of Atlanta, and it's
Every coach has a house down there.
Yeah.
It's like Frank and
But you
Ralph.
said
Frank
that's
and
where
Ralph-
the
Arians
ACC.
the ACC had a couple of kickoffs there at the Ritz-Carlton.
Internet was spotty, if I remember. Or phone coverage was spotty, if I remember correctly.
yeah,
Reynolds
but it's
Plantation out there.
it's a golf paradise, and that's why all the coaches go down there and vacation. And Franklin has a place down there, so it was,
They took 5 of them.
yeah, it was Jay Pearson, Ryan McCarthy, Whit, Bud,
Brad
and
Hobbs.
Brad Hobbs.
and Brad Hobbs.
And they go down there, and McCarthy and Pearson sounded like they wanted to get it done that night. They go in there, and that's where they were really impressed. But Franklin had printouts of the August and September Board of Visitors presentations with notes jotted down in the margins to show that he had like studied this thing. And that I think that's what caught McCarthy's eye the most. He's like, man, I want this guy right now. And Bud's like, let him breathe, guys. Let him breathe a little bit.
But that and we've talked about this before. Media members, all of us, we can all say School X should hire Coach Y. No brainer. That's nonsense. There's got to be that interaction, that face-to-face contact where this guy doesn't want a job. He wants our job. And that moment right there that Andy just described, where Ryan McCarthy walks in that room and sees James Franklin, and he's got the Board of Visitors material right there with him, marked up with questions. Are you kidding me? James Franklin didn't want a job. He wanted this job if the answers were right.
Questions that some of those guys didn't necessarily have the answers to.
Correct.
Like they had to circle the wagons back around and go, hey, are we sure let's sort these details out? And that's Franklin doing his homework. And I think that's the impressive part there, even before them actually getting into all of the physically hashing out all these, last 72 hours plus with Franklin.
And it sounds like Franklin gave them a date throughout this whole process, November 17th. I think there was some nervousness by some members of the committee. McCarthy himself said he was a little nervous. They're talking to other guys. Hey, are we going to miss out on other candidates on this? And throughout it all, Bud sounded like the voice of we'll just give him time until this deadline. Let him come to this decision. Bud flew up there with Jay Pearson last Friday. It's the one where he came back and that student greeted him at the airport with the picture, which was awesome. I mean, fantastic. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, following the message board thread on that. I'm like, man, that's great. Boots on the ground.
It
right
is
there.
2025 coaching search peak. Man.
Kudos to that guy.
And people flight tracking usually doesn't necessarily work.
Yeah, it usually doesn't work, but that one worked. But I asked Bud about that. When you came back, did you think you had him at that point? And Bud gave best, like I wish Aaron McFarlane was here for this answer.
Little gambling.
Bud goes, I'm not a gambler. I gambled on Saturdays for 25 years, but I told these guys, I said, I'm putting all that in. I'm putting my career, my lake house, everything that I own, my reputation, I'm putting that on the table. That's my chips. I said, I'm all in. That's how I feel. We've just got to give this guy time. If Bud's putting the lake house on the table, he's serious about something. He could put a lot of other stuff on the table, but the lake house on there, he's talking truth at that point. And sure enough, a couple of days later, he signs on the dotted line, and they have their coach. And it sounds like a tremendous process by the search committee. Eight people was too many.
Yeah,
they could have gotten by with 3 or 4, and that's sort of the functional group of this whole thing. But kudos to them for this guy became available. They shifted quickly, they prioritized quickly, and they targeted him quickly. They got after it. They got him.
Man, little did we know, and I think all of us were there that day at the golf course in August when Witt presented to the board. We all knew this is a big moment for Virginia Tech, but we didn't know it was XXXL. Yeah. We didn't know that Brent Pry would soon be the former coach. We didn't know how impressed James Franklin would be by this commitment, because James Franklin not only was impressed by this, he contrasted it to some of his other suitors, which he did not name. We can all kind of figure out who some of them might have been. Those other ones weren't nearly as buttoned up. They didn't have the plan that Virginia Tech had, or Virginia
alignment.
Tech has.
You mentioned alignment a couple of times specifically,
and that, Andy, I think is a good segue on Carter.
Well,
no, you're
good. I want to talk about the flight stuff too, because I got Jay Pearson's side of it too, and it's just so interesting because the way they kind of divvied this up was it came down to, you've got the James Franklin front where you've kind of got Jay Pearson and Bud Foster working on the Franklins. And then you've got Ryan McCarthy working on the lawyers and the agent. And they kind of...
And Witt working on the agent.
And Witt Babcock too. And
a lot more involved than people are making it out to be.
Yes. Ryan McCarthy said Witt was instrumental and went into great detail about...
Have a beer, Teel. You were right on that the whole time.
Went into great detail about everything Witt did. And we can, I'm sure, get into it.
Get right into that.
That's where I wanted to go.
But I wanted to go into Pearson and that stuff real quick, because they kind of divvied it up where Pearson was telling me, he's like, Bud had this great relationship just talking football with Franklin. And Pearson said he got to know Fumi, Franklin's wife, very, very well. And when he was talking to Ryan McCarthy and things had kind of stalled on the front, the lawyer front Friday, when they were waiting to hear back about the Penn State buyout, Pearson said, you know what, let's just go up and talk to him. And they texted James, said, can we come up and chat? They said, sure. And it was just him and Bud. And they flew up, and this was Pearson's quote. He wanted more time with Bud to ask questions. They fed us spaghetti, we talked, he drove us 40 minutes back to the airport, and his wife said, this gets us over the mountain.
Boom. There you go.
I may or may not have made my way to the airport on Friday night.
You did.
As you know, David, I took a photo with 2 guys. One was a TSL subscriber. We had a great conversation. He was like, are you here for Bud too? I was like, oh, I don't know. But
why else would I be at the airport?
Exactly.
11 o'clock at night on a Friday.
Exactly. I want to get to what you were alluding to. So first off, this is something that I don't think a lot of people are going to want to hear, but it's true. Witt Babcock deserves a lot of credit with this. A lot of credit. And you sat here on that very screen from the 757, and about 2 weeks into this search, or maybe even earlier, you said that Witt Babcock was going to be the athletic director to start the 2026 football season. Though we aren't there yet, you also said that he was going to be probably very involved in this search. Yeah. People, let's be real, totally kind of pushed that to the wayside. And he was very, very involved in that search. You also said people are kind of jumping on the quote from our episode. I brought the receipts a little bit. They're jumping on the quote from the October 20th episode, whatever, where you're saying, color me skeptical about James Franklin.
Yeah.
That was in reference, though, to him being hired pre-Halloween.
Right, pre-Halloween. I think we were all pretty clear that we just didn't think it was going to happen that early.
Hating.
So
and that's fine.
But
get in line, right? I mean, come on.
But my point is to you know where I'm going. You were right with this a whole heck of a lot from the get-go. And I want to start with that. And then also the second thing too is Whit Babcock deserves a lot of credit for making this cross the finish line. I would assume you guys would agree. And based on what we heard today, he was obviously very, very involved.
First, on the notion of me being right, let's just chalk that up to blind squirrels and acorns. So let's put that aside. Yes, Whit was very involved. And I'll tell you when it may have even started, guys, who do you think was fielding all the text and phone calls from agents when Bruce Arians went on McAfee and said, we're going to hire a general manager first? Because the agents are not happy, not amused, because that's not how their clients want to do business. And Whit got flooded, and he had to handle all that. And then what were the adjectives that James Franklin used about Whit today?
Oh, man.
Authentic, transparent, honest, relentless.
Yeah.
And he even prefaced one sentence with, most importantly,
It was that
Whit
quote.
Babcock.
Would you like me to read that quote?
Have at it, man.
And then most importantly with Babcock, he had just thanked the rector, John Rokovich, and President Tim Sands. And then most importantly with Babcock, Whit has been relentless throughout this entire process. He has been authentic. He has been transparent. And he has been honest. And the opportunity to be able to get to know Whit on a more significant level has been a big part of this process for me.
Yeah. And guys, look, I completely understand the fan dissatisfaction with Whit and the state of the football program. There's no sugarcoating that on his watch, this program has declined to unacceptable levels, and that neither Justin Fuente nor Brent Pry worked. That's on him. But guess what? He gets that. He owns that. And I'm telling you, he craves to correct it. And this is his chance. And, you know, I found it striking today. He could have taken a victory lap today, but he didn't. As we were talking off air, Kelly Babcock stuck around the press conference today longer than Whit did. He didn't want. He just prefers to operate in the shadows, and you know that's not great sometimes for us, but that's his style. But I think his style turned out to be very effective in this case.
It's interesting. We talk about alignment, and Franklin, praised Virginia Tech's alignment. That's not been the case in recent years, right?
Yeah.
It feels like kind of pulling in different directions, and the head coach wants this, and the AD is like, well, here's what we have, and the Board of Visitors has been hesitant to maybe fund as much as possible. I mean, starting in August, it feels like everybody got on the same page here. And they go, this is what it's going to take. This is where we need to get this money from. This is the kind of coach you need to get. The coach is like, this is all the stuff we need to do this. And the AD is on board with all that. It feels like finally everybody is pulling in the same direction at Virginia Tech. And you talk, you've kind of studied like how different programs have succeeded over the years. Like Clemson, how did Clemson get to where they are? Alignment was a big reason for that. And it was donors, athletic director, head coach, boosters, everybody just going in the same direction and pulling in the same direction. And I feel like that's just not been the case for Virginia Tech lately. Perhaps this is the event or the birth of that sort of situation for them.
Yeah. And Andy, you mentioned earlier the serendipity and luck involved with all this timing. Well, guess what Virginia Tech has in common with Clemson? Luck. They stumbled into Dabo Sweeney now.
True. Yeah.
Come on. They make the wide receivers coach the interim. And everybody's like, what in the heck are they thinking? And then he doesn't really finish out the season very well and pretty much figures that he's going to get fired. And then Terry Don Phillips, then the athletic director, brings Dabo Sweeney in for a postseason meeting. At this point, Dabo's sure he's getting fired. And the guy looked him in the eye and said, "I believe in you." Dude's been to 7 or 8 CFPs and he's won 2 natties. They lucked into it. How does that happen? It's just good fortune and maybe a gut hunch. This one had nothing to do with a hunch. You didn't fire Brent Pry because, we think James Franklin's going to be available. No, this was good fortune that Virginia Tech, to its enduring credit, took full advantage of.
Well, I thought Jay Pearson, all 3 of the board members or committee members we talked to, Bud, Pearson, and McCarthy, all spoke very highly of Witt and just how they kind of, yes, they shrunk the circle of how many people were involved, but they let the process play itself out. They all kind of played their different roles, and Bud was kind of the buffer a little bit, telling everybody, hey, let's just calm down a little bit. But I mean, talking about Pearson said when they found out that Franklin was legitimately interested, like if Witt really wanted to, he is the athletic director after all. He could have just taken it and run with it and gone, I'm gonna go get this guy myself. And Witt just let the committee handle it. Yeah. McCarthy talked about Witt's role. He said he was instrumental. He said he was the one setting up all the discussions, all the coordination with the agents, setting up all the meetings. He participated in every one of the meetings, provided advice throughout the entire process. And Bud Foster added, he was the guy that put us in front of the candidates. Then we would talk as a group. Witt would initially lead the discussion along with Ryan McCarthy, and then Witt would walk away, and he would just let the committee talk about the candidates and their strengths and weaknesses, and he set the table for everything.
It felt like everybody kind of played a role in this.
Yeah.
A table setter, you have a military guy who's really forcing stuff, you have Pearson, who obviously, big donor, and then, business guy has that kind of perspective. And then you have Bud, the coach, who could understand a coach's perspective. I mean, you could have 4 different people talking to Franklin and give you 4 different perspectives that they're sort of having expertise in. I think it worked out very well.
I think Pearson's role, Franklin talked about him more than, like, outside of Bud, I think it was Pearson. Like Franklin talked about how he just made a great relationship with
at the
Pearson.
BOV meeting yesterday too. That's what he led off with, talking about Jay Pearson.
Yeah, I think you can't underestimate him and just how much he genuinely cared about getting Franklin.
And think about how these men had to check their egos at the door. Because come on now, when you're as successful as Ryan McCarthy and Jay Pearson and Bud, and to a certain degree Witt. I mean, I'm the AD. I'm running the department, or I'm supposed to. Egos could have easily got in the way here, and I think from everything we can ascertain that they didn't, and that's a credit to them.
Such a perfect segue, because another name that seemed to be very involved in this search late in the process, whose ego clearly was left at the door, was Brent Pry. Brent Pry seemed to play, I don't know if instrumental is a fair way to put it, but James Franklin said himself, he does not believe he would be sitting here today without Brent Pry.
Well, he got choked up.
He was pretty emotional.
To me, that was the most. It was the most poignant part of. Oftentimes when coaches are introduced, they tear up talking about their family or their kids and everything. I mean, this guy. He couldn't even get Brent Pry's name out before I'm like, what's wrong? He's got to clear stuff. And then it was like, no, he's getting emotional. I found that incredibly telling.
Yeah, and they go back 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, Franklin was Jim Pry's quarterback. Jim Pry was the offensive coordinator at East Stroudsburg University. Brent Pry was a first-year defensive backs coach, I think at that point. Yeah. So that's how far back they go. They worked together at Vanderbilt all 3 years in Penn State until Brent Pry got the job here. So you would imagine in this process that Franklin, who knows Brent Pry very well, clearly has his phone number, would call him up and ask, just give me an unvarnished look at this program. The good, the bad, the ugly. Yeah. And Pry, to his credit, listen, if I got laid off from a job, and I have,
likewise,
I would not speak so kindly about my former employer.
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
I haven't.
Yeah, let's be clear about this. I also haven't. So for Pry to swallow his pride in a way and still speak so highly of this place, and Franklin mentioned it, he clearly still loves this place. and for that to be a positive enough endorsement of this place for Franklin to still pursue this job, I think it's just, I mean, it's a great angle and story on this whole hiring. And, I asked Franklin.
I applaud you, by the way, for asking this question that you're about to share with us.
Yeah, we had this little breakout. So I'm like, you talk about how much Brent Pry loves this university. Is there any possibility he could be a part of this staff going forward? Or is that too raw right now? Would that be too difficult for somebody like that to do? And Franklin, first of all, is a maestro of not answering questions.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, he can tap dance around any
I mean,
question.
he ended up diving into recruiting.
Yeah, it's all over the place. When he wants to avoid a question, he will do
gosh.
it. So he didn't really answer the question. It was sort of like, we'll see.
Yeah.
It's like, what I'm going to do what's right for Virginia Tech. Brent's going to do what's right for him. So it wasn't really an answer, but he didn't say no.
He did not.
So, I mean, I look at Virginia Tech right now. I mean, shoot, James Johnson is, assistant high school director. Like, he was a basketball coach here.
Right,
he came back to that, but that was after a period of time.
Sure.
Several years had passed.
I mean, to me, man, it would be tough if I was the head coach of someplace and like, come back and be a personnel guy or an assistant coach or something like that. That would be really tough to do, and yet.
But he'd be doing it with his guy,
right?
Yes.
Like
that's the big.
They could be getting the band back together.
Yeah, Prize DC,
let's go
Ronnie is
there.
OC. I mean, it's not that far fetched.
Okay, we'll go there real fast. Then we'll go there real fast.
Because I saw it, because you guys on the pod earlier this week with Chris, we're talking about Ricky. And obviously, I know Ricky a little bit. And I actually texted him this morning, not about joining the staff. He's trying to finish 9-3. He's having a hell of a year. And highlighted by what they did here, as a matter of fact. But I said, I'm at the press conference. And he texted back. He goes, he's going to win that. And boy, was he right.
Yeah, he's in his element in front of a microphone.
Oh my gosh,
Press conferences are going to be interesting with him. He knows what he's doing.
Yes, he does.
As long as you answer his "How are you?"
Yeah.
Yes. That's not just like a kindly salutation. Like, no, he wants an actual response.
But I think, as you guys noted, it's not unique anymore for a sitting head coach to transition back to coordinating if they just get tired of it, or if they're looking for something different. And, conceivably, Virginia Tech could double Ricky Ronnie's salary if it wanted to, and James Franklin would want him as OC. And the minute I saw James Franklin on the sideline at Old Dominion 2 Thursdays ago, that's where my mind went. Not that, he's here to support Ricky Ronnie. I was like, that dude's here recruiting. And he mentioned something today. Where was he before the game? He was tailgating. Who was he tailgating with? The Ronnie family.
Well, and the wives are all close, and not just and we were talking about Pry.
And Amy
Pry is close with Fumi, and forgive me, I don't know Ricky Ronnie's wife, but I mean, they were all. It was this collective at Penn State.
I would feel more confident that this could be a possibility if Ricky Ronnie was 3-7 this year rather than 7-3. He's kind of got Old Dominion rolling right now. Like, we'll see how they finish up here. Could you parlay that into a better head coaching job after that? I mean, if you don't want to take a step back to be a coordinator and continue your head coaching career like that.
I think, this is Ricky's first winning season at Old Dominion.
So been to 2 bowl games, though.
Yes.
I mean, you're 6-6 and get to a bowl game. I'd consider that an accomplishment.
Okay. Yeah, at Old Dominion, sure.
Even if you lose the bowl game, who cares about the bowl game, really?
Fair enough. And he was dealt a terrible hand because he was hired right before COVID.
Right.
And they didn't play. Yeah,
and they
in
didn't
2020,
play.
yeah.
So his first season got postponed. And, that really put him behind everyone. And, he's going to lose his quarterback.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if
Carter said, Colton
Colton Joseph,
come on down. Jinx.
the guy's going to get paid, and Old Dominion can't afford him. And Ricky Ronnie has got to know that. I haven't talked to Ricky Ronnie about this, but of course he knows it. And what's that mean for his future and the future of the program at Old Dominion? So I don't know. It would not shock me if Brent Pry if James Franklin is making that sales pitch.
Well, remember how quickly Bobby Wilder's time there ended after he lost his quarterback. Like, he had that dude for a while and then couldn't figure it out after that.
Taylor
it becomes very difficult when you don't have the quarterback in place at a program like that.
So we should note that you asked the question to McCarthy. McCarthy said it is a 5-year deal for James Franklin. We did not get a term sheet. This is something that, as you were talking about the assistants, it popped up out of mind. And I don't think I mentioned this, but when I was talking to Jay Pearson off to the side, he told me, quote, in terms of staff salary, he said his staff is top 10 in the country in terms of dollars for staff, talking about James Franklin's staff.
At Penn State or his new staff at Virginia Tech?
At Virginia Tech. That's what Jay Pearson said. Talking about this staff is going to be like top 10 in the country as far as salaries.
Which has got to be in what range? 20 million for the 10 full time?
I would.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I'd have to look that up.
Yeah.
I'm guessing 20 would be at the top, an average of 2. You're paying your coordinators 3 to 4, and then the rest of your staff less.
Probably. That's what, but I mean, you could go get whoever you want.
I mean, wasn't Penn State paying Jim Knowles like
$3 million?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And so this is what we talk about, the financial element of all of this, that Virginia Tech has not shied away from, has met every ask for Franklin in this entire process as far as financially.
These are 2024 salary stats here from USA Today.
Okay.
I assume Steve Berkowitz, who's retired.
Yes, he has. Burko. Great
Which
guy.
is
Lives in
unfortunate
Richmond
because
now.
he created this whole thing. Top staff in 2024 was Ohio State, $11.4 million.
Oh, wow. I'm way off.
Second
Really?
place, SEC, Georgia, 10.3. Now, these salaries have gone up since then. But this is what it says for the staff members total for those. And that was Jim Knowles' salary for Ohio State that year, $2.2 million. Chip Kelly, $2 million.
Interesting.
So that's not including the head coach in that total.
Right, but that's $4 million for 2 guys. You mean your other 8 guys are only making 6 total? Wow.
That's what it looks
Okay.
like.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But
Brian
so,
Hartline, 1.6. Larry Johnson,
what's the
1.4.
10th
Tim
number?
Walton, 1.4.
what's
That's what I was gonna
what's
ask,
the number
yeah.
10 school, like in terms of I don't know
It's
if you
kind
can
of set up
tell.
strange, so it's tough to see. I mean, it drops off
but I
pretty
mean,
quick.
if,
But
you're saying Virginia,
again, those prices have gone up.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Since
you're
then.
saying Virginia Tech is maybe paying 8, 9, 10 ish in that ballpark for a staff. I mean, that's big boy football. And I think I completely forgot that Pearson had told me that. There have been so many people know so many quotes from
Right.
today.
What was Virginia Tech paying, Andy?
I'd have to look that one up.
Prize staff.
This
yeah.
one, according to this, was $5.4 million. So that was Marv and Bowen at $875 each at the top of the scale.
Okay.
So
I
double it.
mean, it's obviously. I mean, both coordinators this year are making around $1 million. And I would imagine if you try to be competitive, and Franklin's talked about we're going to go after the best staff in the country, and everybody says that,
Yeah.
but I feel like he'll actually have the financial backing to go after some guys this year. I mean, you talk about you could double Ricky Ronnie's salary, you could almost triple it if you want to. Now I don't know if he's that good of an OC, but I think they'll have some cash there to go after some people.
Yeah. Well, and I also imagine, I mean, if you pluck a sitting head coach, Joe Moorhead was somebody thrown around. He's at Akron, and he had some pretty good offenses under Franklin and Penn State.
Yeah, talk about a guy who's scuffling along as a head coach. Like
Yeah.
that might be good to
Yeah.
parachute.
But
there
if
to get
you
up.
if you bring a sitting head coach, does he bring dudes? Who knows?
Yeah.
Carter?
If it's from ODU, yes. If it's from Akron, I
Probably
don't know if I need all those Akron players. But
By the way, Colton Joseph has some wide receivers
Yeah.
to throw to.
Virginia Tech saw them in person.
Yes.
So USA Today has Ole Miss having the 10th highest assistant coaching salary pool. It is $8.225 million. That was 2024.
Okay.
So
yeah, so they're a little
So
dated with
around
the
9,
numbers,
10 maybe?
Yeah.
but
okay.
ballpark.
What do you think they're paying James Franklin?
We don't.
I mean,
we didn't get a term
I know
sheet.
you haven't seen the term sheet, but what would your guesstimate be? I would assume somewhere between 10 to 12.
Well,
Well,
so we were talking with some of our Penn State folks that came down, Audrey Snyder, right, and John Sauber. I don't want to mispronounce their names. And they were talking. John Sauber was the one who broke the James Franklin buyout news the other day. And the way it sounds like it's down to $9 million, and it might just be $3 million over the first 3 years of his contract. So you're talking like Tech's paying 5.55 because Penn State has to make the difference. So he's getting 8 in total, and then it goes up to like 10, 12. Does that make sense?
That would make sense. I understand why you do that.
That's what he threw out there.
Gives you a little pocket change to go out and recruit some.
It does seem on the front end that they can go after some better targets, both coaches and players in that situation.
Yeah.
So what do you think his staff looks like then? I would assume there's going to be a mix of current staffers here, especially operationally. I mean, a lot of the guys came from Penn State.
Yep.
But he also reportedly is going to bring a lot of that operational staff that was currently with him at Penn State to Virginia Tech. And I'm sure he's going to bring some assistant coaches that were with him at Penn State to Virginia Tech. All while also going outside the two schools and probably bringing a couple of new faces into the program.
Well, there's a report out there from, I think, the student paper up there that has been confirmed by a couple
Collegian,
places that like basically the entire front office staff is coming along. And that's a GM, that's a chief of staff, a bunch of player personnel guys. And, that makes sense. I mean, if you're going to hit the ground running in a recruiting sense, you're going to want those guys around you specifically to organize that kind of stuff.
I think Penn State, I look, because USA Today now has a database of general managers.
That's right. They just came out with that.
And I think Penn State's guy was making 4. I think that's right.
So Sean Fitz of On3, which was confirmed by the Daily Collegian, the student newspaper at Penn State, originally reported by Sean Fitz, Kevin Threlkel,
something like that. It's a mouthful to try to say that.
And the GM and player personnel and recruitment, Andy Frank, are both expected to come to Blacksburg.
Yeah.
They're both no longer listed on Penn State's staff, and then. They mentioned a recruiting coordinator, an assistant recruiting coordinator,
4 other
an assistant assistant director of player relations, and an assistant director of player advancement and revenue sharing strategy are no longer in the directory and are going to join Franklin. So, front office, baby.
I mean, if you're going to recruit 2 weeks before signing day, those are the essentials that you need to get that done.
Yeah, you
and this weekend, it sounded like it's shaping up to be a big recruiting weekend.
Yes.
Like they have this opportunity, this showcase opportunity that what they're frankly showing recruits around is like, oh, that's where that is. I haven't been able to see this building yet. It's like, I'm new here too. But I mean, man, I have to imagine they're going to go all out here because it's like he said, it's a sprint to the finish here with signing day coming up.
Yeah, literally, I'm sure they've set up a war room. And they are going to work.
Well, and it seems like that you mentioned James Johnson earlier. It seems like the current Virginia Tech staff has been very, very busy, and I'm sure they will be at least until signing day and James Franklin gets settled and whatnot. But I mean, there were some current coaching staff members in attendance. J.C. Price was in there. I saw Elijah Brooks in the hallway talking with James Johnson. There were players and whatnot up in the stands. So it'll be interesting to see how this whole staffing thing shakes out in the next couple of weeks.
I think there's some guys want to keep their job, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to impress
the
their
boss.
boss.
Hey, I could stick around here. I'm doing a pretty good job.
Right, and
you guys got a lot of shekels you're passing around here. It sounds like there's an infusion of money here. You can afford to keep me.
And by the way, might win some football games along the way.
But that's what I mean. Like, I think they're going to keep Fontel Mines, Elijah Brooks. I don't know. But if you keep those two,
I would. I know Andy, and Andy knows better than I. Wouldn't you keep Mines and Brooks?
I'd keep both of those guys. I'd also keep J.C. Price.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about, Mines is a UVA guy. I know he's been here the last couple of years, but he was a UVA grad. And Brooks, I mean, obviously the connections to DeMatha. And, that region is critical for recruiting, especially running backs coach. Running backs coaches are always essential in recruiting. To me, JC just bleeds maroon and orange. Like if you want to have somebody on your staff that just gets this place, he would be the one to do that. So I have no inside information about this, about whether they're going to keep, JC in this situation. But I mean, he coached under Fuente. He coached under Pry. He's a player back in the day, GA under Charlie Wiles and Bud and Frank and all that stuff. Like, man, he's got connections for days. If you're trying to find somebody who has that connection, that's the way to do it.
Nick said, will he retain Brent Pry?
Yes.
But you talk about JC. JC's a guy who will literally punch a hole in a locker for Virginia Tech.
Was it a locker or a blackboard?
I thought it was a locker. I can't
Was it a
remember.
locker?
I can't remember
Okay.
exactly. Whatever it was, it
Did the
it was
Yankees-
not given.
Did the Yankees bill him for it? Or bill
They
Virginia
can afford
Tech?
it. They can afford
they
it.
can't afford it.
They can afford it.
With that payroll, yeah.
Okay, so maybe you keep those 2-3. I don't know what it would be. You're probably bringing some staffers from Penn State on the field. Like, I say this kind of jokingly, but like, third time's a charm for Anthony Poindexter. Like, is he coming to Virginia Tech this time? Like, could you potentially have 3 UVA guys on the staff with, is it Marquise Higgins? Marcus Higgins, I'm sorry. Fontel Mines, and then Anthony Poindexter. I mean, there's a lot of guys on that Penn State staff that have the Virginia and Virginia Tech ties that could benefit from a tenure in Blacksburg here coming up.
Hagen strikes, and I know him as Biscuit from his days as a quarterback at Hampton High
I covered
School.
some of that. Well, not in the high school, but college.
And you
Engineered a pretty good win over Florida State back in the day. With
Yes,
UVA.
he did. And then Marcus went on to the NFL for a little while as a wideout, actually. But Marcus coaches the receivers, as does Mines. And as we were talking about earlier, Penn State's wide receivers have not been great. Now, whether that's because I know Marcus can coach, whether that's because they haven't recruited well enough or it was the offense, I'm not sure. I don't follow the program that well. So I wonder if Marcus would come along with Coach Franklin. But Dex, on the defensive side, that'd be really, really interesting.
That would be interesting. Franklin has passed him over as the coordinator several
Yeah.
times. So I maybe am hesitant to say like he's going to give him the coordinator position here, co-coordinator maybe, or some situation like that. It wouldn't surprise me if he came with. I'm just, when Pry left, they hired Manny Diaz. And then Diaz left, and it was Tom Allen. And Tom Allen left, and they hired Jim Knowles. If you're sitting there like, man, I've been on the staff this whole time, and I have a coordinator history, and I haven't been able to get that job. So again, I don't know what's in his mind on this, but these guys would all make sense to join the staff.
Do you see either of the coordinators coming down here? I think there's been some murmurs about Jim Knowles not.
I don't think either
here.
of those coordinators.
No.
Jim Knowles hasn't really been a success for bang for the buck for that money. And the offensive coordinator, I think, is part of the reason why Franklin got fired.
Yeah.
I mean, they have not been very good offensively. So I would maybe say no on that. But again, I don't have like deep knowledge of like how the operations worked at Penn State.
I'd be surprised if either coordinator came along.
All right, let's take a quick break and hear from our presenting sponsor, State Farm, here on Talking with Teel. Switching is easy. We do it all the time. We switch on the lights. We switch TV channels. Some of us switch partners while square dancing. Well, that's a stretch. But what's not a stretch is how you can switch and save with State Farm. In fact, a group of State Farm agents that support TechSideline.com can switch you over to State Farm so you can start saving today. These State Farm agents and their team are ready to welcome you to the State Farm neighborhood. Check out Tech Sideline for the agent in your area. It's easy to switch and save. Just give them a call. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. And welcome back to this edition of Talking with Teel. I want to talk schedule next year for Virginia Tech. Obviously, it is a workable schedule, and obviously it is subject to change with the ACC potentially going to 9 games. There likely will be a non-conference game dropped. You just brought this up during the break. Virginia Tech opens up with VMI next season.
Yeah.
Any game to kick off the James Franklin era will get some attention. But on the national stage, not an opportune situation for Virginia Tech to kick off with the VMI Keydets just up the road in Lexington here in Blacksburg the first week of September.
It is not. And you guys have mentioned this, and I have heard similar things that the JMU game is probably going to go away.
It's a bummer.
Which is
I know.
Which would be a disappointment.
But does Virginia Tech really want James Franklin's first game to be on streaming or on ACCN? Because that's what you're looking at with VMI. Now, I know you want to win, but come on.
Furthermore, does the ACC want that? They want to put their prime coaches out there in like big games right now.
And we haven't mentioned this yet. Jim Phillips was here today.
He was.
And I've been texting with him. He's fired up about this, to have James Franklin in his league. That's a big coup for this is important for the league. It's important for Virginia Tech football to be good in this conference. And, when's the last time that, the Hokies and Florida State and Miami and Clemson were all rolling? And it's been a minute.
If you're the ACC, would you know how they used to play some league games to open the year? Would it be crazy if you played like a Virginia Tech Clemson to open the year? Like, do it week one?
I believe, now this is obviously before Virginia Tech was in the ACC. This is when the Hokies were an independent. I think Frank Beamer's first game at Virginia Tech was at Clemson.
We can do some
I think
Googling.
I think that might be true.
Oh, 87.
87.
Just for the dead air.
It
1987.
was indeed number 10 Clemson. They lost 22-10.
I was there.
I was in Lane
Were you
Stadium.
really? 1987.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I mean,
ironic.
Virginia Tech, Penn State, season opener. Who says no? Who says no? Virginia Tech's got VMI, cancel that game. Penn State has Marshall. Buy both those games out. I mean, you would do crazy numbers on that one.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You could play that game anywhere.
I was going to say, put them at the link.
Ooh.
Well, if they played it in, I know everybody hates the stadium, but if you played it in Landover, Penn State,
No,
Virginia Tech,
gotta
outside
wait
of
till they
DC,
build a new one there. I'm
No.
not,
All right, we'll
I'm
wait
not
till-
going back to
You play,
Landover to cover
you
the
could play
game
in,
there.
in like
Do it at the link.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, Pittsburgh or
That'd
Philly.
be awesome. I mean, think of the viewership that game would get. Think of the ticket sales that game would have.
But it would be competing with UVA, NC State, and Brazil.
Oh, well.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, but- Yeah.
So which game would you go to?
I've been to Brazil. I don't need to go back.
Before we wrap, go ahead, Andy. I'm sorry.
But yeah,
I'm
I'm just
done.
saying, yeah, VMI, they got to find a better opener.
Well,
Yes.
and I'm sure that's probably James Franklin has a lot of things to do, but I'm sure that would be at the top of the priority list of fix the schedule. For
Well, I mean,
next year.
it just think viewership matters now.
Yeah.
Yes,
For money.
viewership
that's a
equals
huge,
money.
That is a huge opportunity for Virginia Tech to have a showcase. And think this opener this year that they got 4.5 million viewers or whatever it is. That's been carrying Virginia Tech's viewership numbers all year because they've been on the CW and ACC.
More than 5 million.
Whatever the
Yeah.
actual number was. I mean, they've been on the ACC network and the CW ever since then. And, all due respect to the CW.
This weekend.
At least I get the CW. I finally got ESPN and the ACC network back. Thank you, YouTube TV, for that little brief period there. But, I mean, to put up a big number in that opener like that, you got to seize that opportunity these days.
You think this weekend will draw some numbers on ESPN?
Yes.
You roll out James Franklin, have him on the broadcast. I think people will be tuning in.
Basketball tonight's going to be fun too. Seeing
Yeah.
them talk at halftime. Before we wrap it up, I want to talk about and I had this in my notes to start off going this direction, but we kind of just went immediately into the content. That's great. But the immediate boom that James Franklin provides this Virginia Tech football program, and to your point, Andy, the presence that he has on the podium. This is something unlike really anything we've maybe ever seen at Virginia Tech. Everybody knows that James Franklin is this pulverizing figure in all of college football if you weren't a Penn State fan the last couple of years. Everybody knows who James Franklin is. Everybody's going to be talking about Virginia Tech. He was on the Pat McAfee show today. He was on SportsCenter today. And you saw just kind of how he was in person as well. Just kind of the boom aspect that James Franklin is going to provide this Virginia Tech football program and kind of watching them interact in person throughout the day today.
Oh, I mean, you don't think he loved that walking into Castle to enter Sandman this morning? And then he's not talking to us. Sorry, he's talking to the core.
Right.
I mean, he played it perfectly. He truly did. And then we saw him. We're up in the press box working afterward, and then he comes out of the tunnel and he's walking around the field and he goes up to some of the grounds people and introduces himself. And then they're staging the photos and all that. But yeah, he is a showman.
I was just going to say that. He's a showman. And there's a little BS to it.
Of course there is.
A little repeated lines. Like I've heard it's like, do you like Metallica? It's like, I'm more of an R&B hip hop guy. It's like, well, he said that at the Board of Visitors meeting. They said today, is it McAfee? So he's got his answers that he goes to, but they're entertaining answers. And he's an entertainer up there. I think he likes to be in that position. Even like the little interaction with me when I started was like, how are you today, Andy? And it's like, I started my question. It's like, how are you today? Like, that's just him being like, I'm sort of in charge here
Yes.
on this thing. And like, I don't take offense to it like that. It was a cute little thing. And David Hale got the same treatment sometime later. Should have known better after I blew through the intro right the first time. But this will be sort of more must-see TV, some of these press conference situations with him than... I mean, Frank was Frank, and we're gonna do this.
It's a dangerous crowd,
yeah,
Andy.
yeah. I mean, Frank was fun to listen to, but man, you heard those Frankisms a ton of times. Fuente was like, nails on a chalkboard. Sometimes he didn't want to be there.
Right.
You could tell. Pry was excitable, but not in the same way. I feel like Franklin could be sort of an entertaining watch in these press conferences. And it'll be interesting to see this sort of back and forth with the media and how he handles us here once you get past this huge crowd.
Yeah.
Like get here 2 months and then see how many reporters are still here for this thing. It's not going to be 25 or whatever it was at the thing today. So we'll see what it's like then. But I think he will be something to watch in these press settings, because I think that's where he really shines as a coach.
And I'm guessing, Andy, that will translate to the Hokie Club and all the donor events that they're going to ask him to do.
You can tell why he's a good recruiter, because he can relate to people. He can talk to people like that. I mean, if you're a dynamic personality like that, it shows up in so many different ways. And that's what you need to be as the head of a football program. You can't sort of be like this, the shy, reserved guy. It's like, no, that's what the money's for. Right. To quote Don Draper here, get out. That's what the money's for. Get out there and be the face of this program. You can't be an introvert.
He's in their tax bracket now, too.
Yeah, exactly.
He, in some ways, he reminds you of Buzz Williams, just the way he interacts with people. And
a lot of buzz in there.
Yeah. But also, I think just he knows how to play the cards. Like he knows exactly what he's doing. And yeah, it was funny talking with some of the Penn State reporters in the press box just about their interactions with him over the last dozen years and what might come over time covering James Franklin. But yeah, I'm interested to see what happens when it's February 10th, random spring football day, and what the interaction's like, and there's a long way for him to go.
I cannot believe we are living in a universe where James Franklin is the head football coach of Virginia Tech. And the donations are just going to start trickling in too, and season ticket sales, and that's awesome too for Virginia Tech football. Teel, this is so much fun as always. Thank you for coming in person. Awesome podcast, and we really, really appreciate you doing it. Enjoy basketball tonight. Safe travels back to the 757. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week. I guess we're going to look forward to what is next for James Franklin and the Hokies now that this
Commonwealth
Clash, Virginia Tech, Virginia. Cavaliers can clinch a spot potentially in the ACC title.
You went over the tiebreakers earlier, right?
They could clinch this weekend.
And a lot of people lose, right? I mean, they're not playing, so everybody else has to lose for them to get into it.
3 games would have to fall their way. Carolina would have to beat Duke. Louisville would have to beat SMU.
Pitt beat Georgia Tech.
Pitt beat Georgia Tech. That would clinch Virginia's spot in the ACC championship. I don't think that trifecta is going to hit.
Let's get some stakes on this Commonwealth Clash here.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I want to go into an electric stadium that they're playing for something there. Let's do it. Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you'll be in town this weekend for the Miami game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going home tonight and then turn around, coming back Friday.
Nice. The Teel Mobile. Back to Blacksburg, Virginia. Well, we appreciate it. For the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer, David Teel, for David Cunningham, Andy Bitter, Nick Brown, I'm Carter Hill. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Talking with Teel, presented by State Farm. We look forward to seeing you later this week. Hokies and Miami preview coming tomorrow. It's a very busy week. And once again, we'll talk to you very, very soon.